All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I know you're extremely busy, but we're recording this for our friends at Rosa Scott, Germantown High School, and Ridgeland High School as well. And I have a room full here with me at Velma Jackson High School. And before we get started, it's it's like we talked this weekend. It's unbelievable. 14 years ago when we met, it's never crossed my mind that we'd be where we are today, and it's such a blessing to be able to reconnect like this. And I'm so proud of you, and it's just an unbelievable moment for me to see you again. And we thank you for coming today. So before we get into ag exposure and teaching at Oklahoma State University there in Stillwater, tell us about where you grew up. You grew up right up the road in Memphis, and how in your college experience, and how you got into all this first.
Yes, well, hi everybody. It's good to kind of meet you. I know I can't see you, but good to meet you. But I'm originally from Memphis, Tennessee. Grew up right outside of Memphis in a town called Millington, and I just played a lot of sports. Ended up getting recruited on a track scholarship and went to Austin Peay State University, and that's where I met Mr. Piggott. And that's where our paths crossed. I was a referee, and he taught me the ropes on that, so it was a lot of fun. And I initially going there, I knew I wanted to be a veterinarian, but at Austin Peay, you had to be an agriculture science major to be a veterinarian. I knew nothing about agriculture besides the stories I had heard from my dad and my mom growing up. So I didn't really have a huge interest in ag, but I wanted to be more like a veterinarian for cats, dogs, domesticated pets. So I quickly realized that I didn't want to take organic chemistry. I didn't want to take microbiology. I didn't want to take those courses. It wasn't that serious for me, and I didn't want to put animals down. So I wanted to figure out a different route. But when I went to the farms and got to be around livestock and cattle, I thought this is really cool. So I still loved animals, stuck with agriculture, ended up picking communications up as a minor, and then graduated, took a year off, interned, figured out what I wanted to do, joined a master's program at Oklahoma State University, and studied agriculture communications. So I still didn't really understand agriculture, to be honest, at that point, what the career opportunities were. I just knew I loved animals, so I just stuck with it. And then it wasn't until I got to Oklahoma State was when I really, I think, found my niche and my path. I was in a graduate, like an intro to grad school class, and one of my professors said, what problem do you want to solve? And I didn't. That's why you got to have a mentor. Make sure you have a mentor if you don't already, and talk to them often, because I didn't know grad school really was going to solve some kind of problem. So I didn't know what I wanted to do. And of course, I was the only, and often in my classes at Austin Peay, I was often one of the only, if not the only, Black students in my class. There's not a lot of Black people studying agriculture, and at least to what the extent I thought. And I was in another class at OSU, the only Black student, and some other group in there said, I want to try to like add more diversity to agriculture. And it had never crossed my mind, because all my Black friends, Alice and P, just would tease me about majoring in ag. It was just a joke, and I didn't really think people would consider it. So when they said that, I said, well, why aren't there any Black people in agriculture? And I would like to see more. I'd like to see more people who look like me in these classes. So that's when I started my research path and started looking into African American agriculture. And that's been my research focus since then. And with doing that, I did my thesis for my master's, studied Black ag. And then one of the recommendations was that if you want Black youth to engage in ag and consider ag as a career, you got to introduce them early. So with that, I said, well, why don't I just go do that? Because I know we have programs like FFA and 4-H that are doing that, but I felt like they weren't really engaging with the Black community in the most effective way to make ag make sense and seem like a positive opportunity. And being from Memphis, I saw there's a lot of opportunity for like my peers at that point, like other kids that maybe got into trouble. I've heard a lot about ag being kind of a switch and putting people in good positions and creating more opportunities. So I said, well, we need to see more Black kids get that. So I ended up pursuing that, started a nonprofit, AGSPOSURE, that did just that and targeted minority communities and tried to get them engaged in agriculture. So I did that for a couple of years. in that while working at a university, Langston University, did that for a while and got really immersed in the Black community of ag and realized that there are Black people doing agriculture and doing it really well. And there's students who are majoring in agriculture. I think Alcorn may be y'all's 1890 out there. So it was just a lot of eye-opening experience and made me fall more in love with ag and made me want to advocate more for the Black people who were doing that, but we're having challenges because I don't have a green thumb and I don't necessarily want to have livestock to take care of then eat. So I would prefer to just help the farmers who do that and, be able to go visit cattle and then leave. So I did that. And then I started my PhD program in 2019. It's a 3-year program, so I should be graduating this May. It's very expedited year-round, but we're figuring it out, and I've been doing that, continuing to study Black Ag, created a Black Ag class, and hoping to get back into AGSPOSURE because we went dormant when COVID happened, like a lot of people, and then with my school and studies kind of picking up. So that's been the focus of my career, that along with family and husband, kids, all that, but just really trying to figure out my lane and getting more people engaged in agriculture.
Yeah, and before we talk more about that, explain, because obviously this is a 9th grade class and we're talking about the agriculture career cluster, but it's important to know the importance that agriculture plays in everybody's life because it's not just farming and it's not just livestock, but without agriculture, we would not have a place to live because we have to have the logging. We would not have anything to eat because everything has to be grown or farmed. And then we wouldn't have any clothes because all of the cotton and other materials that had to be farmed and developed. So how important are these agriculture careers? And it's not just people in the field. There's a lot of technology involved. There's a lot of drone. We have a drone program here in our school district that is really big in agriculture now. So how important is the exposure to agriculture, not just for the Black community, but for students in general?
Definitely. So I would say with that, I did photography and marketing and digital marketing and all website design, flyer design, all that in agriculture. So I would say anything that you want to do, I encourage you and challenge you before this meeting is over or at the end of the day, think of a problem you want to solve, like really connect to an issue you want to solve, and then think of a gift that you have, something as your natural ability, and try to connect the two. And for me, I found that agriculture was a way that I could connect my gifts to solve some problems that I saw. So, I mean, you could do engineering, you could do computer science, you can do you can get into, like I tell students, if they're interested in fashion, well, maybe you could look into where certain fabrics come from. If you're looking at cashmere, it comes from a goat. Or if you're looking at cotton in clothing, or if you're looking at your desk, I mean, anything that you experience to some degree has some kind of connection to ag, but you do not have to be out in the field. And I think that was something that I didn't really realize, all the opportunities that were available. So, I mean, you could do communications, you could do television, anything you're interested in, you got to pick a focus. So whether it's sports journalism or agriculture journalism, it's any industry you go in, you have a specific focus and niche. But agriculture, there's just so many opportunities. And as people are not only thinking about how can we feed this growing population, I mean, that's a really big talking point, but there's a lot of thought that needs also going into food waste and all the things we're wasting, and agriculture has a lane for that. So I just challenge you, anything you're interested in, there's a way to find a connection to agriculture or agricultural focus, and then you can kind of pursue that. Because with kind of the climate change and all these different things, there's such variety within ag and how people view ag, whether it's big ag, small ag, regenerative ag, a lot of different methods. You just have to kind of find your niche, or even teaching. I mean, there's ag ed programs and different levels, extension, where you can work with the community and help them solve a problem using ag, like food insecurity or anything like that. There's a lot of connection that I don't think a lot of people can like naturally make, but you can certainly do that when you're looking at careers.
Yeah, and we have the Alcorn State University, the HBCU. We have Mississippi State, which has a big agriculture program. And we also have Hines Community College in Utica, which is an HBCU community college that also has an associate's in agriculture. So there is, and I'll send this to Dr. Carla, I can't spit her name out, Dr. Carla Turner Bailey, who heads up the ag program at Hines Community College. I think y'all be great to collaborate. So Um, Tell us a little bit about AGSPOSURE. I mean, I've been reading a little bit about it, and it seems like you're doing some big things with that, and it comes off of your research you did to get Blacks involved in the agriculture field.
Yeah, so like I said, like you mentioned, it came from a like research isn't something that I naturally was really interested in doing, but I did see the utility in it because I think I have a really big entrepreneurial interest, and that's just been a little bit different with my doctoral journey. Is that I am looking at faculty jobs and things like that as I approach graduation, but the entrepreneurial aspect, I like taking information and applying it. Every research study you'll read has recommendations, conclusions, and implications. And that's basically the roadmap and the answer key to go and solve a problem that that research is focused on. So I did that with exposure. And what I ended up doing is broadening the scope and started looking at any minority that had any specific, it has experienced any prejudice, anything like that in reference to the United States Department of Ag on how they defined it. So that was our focus. And we wanted to use agriculture as a tool to help solve those problems. So some of the problems that I saw was food insecurity, health, wealth, lack of land ownership, or lack of resources. And those were in three different areas. I saw in the limited resource farmers, which those are farmers that don't have a lot of resources. Maybe they don't have the funding or the land that they need. I saw this also in specific communities that had bigger disparities than others. So if it was an impoverished community or a community that didn't have a lot of access to internet or anything like that. And then also looking at youth. So any kind of youth communities that maybe needed some extra resources or support, or their school was strained and strapped and needed some extra help. Some of these schools that we targeted, particularly in inner city, they didn't have agriculture programs. So it was really appealing for us to try to get agriculture into those areas. So that's kind of the three-tier program we looked at. But every solution that we wanted to develop would be centered around agriculture. So the big picture was that even with the youth, we'd want them to go and major in agriculture, but our biggest goal would be that they felt like they had some mentorship, some support, some exposure, and then they can go off and be successful in whatever they choose to do. So it really was just a passion project and something that I wanted to do to try and help communities that I felt like could utilize some support. And I thought agriculture would be a creative way to do that.
Yeah, and you guys got a great Instagram page and a Facebook page, and we'll make sure we get that information out as well. But obviously, with your research, you know about the different jobs that are available in this cluster. So, what are some? I mean, I mentioned the drones. What are some other technologies that are out now that if somebody's a technological person, that they could make a big difference and a great living working in this area?
Yeah, there's some really interesting research going on. So, kind of to the point of global warming, you know, there's a lot of talk about different perspectives on that. So, with that, we have animals that are ruminant animals that, you know, eat the forage and then they have the different compartments, different stomachs, and they can digest it. And then they put off methane gas. So, that has been seen as a possible contributor to kind of global warming issues. So some technology that I've seen that's been kind of developed is that these feeding systems and these kind of trackers, for lack of a better word, that they put on goats, they can put it on cattle, and they put it on them when they're out and they're grazing. And then there's these automatic chutes that only they can go eat in. So when they go and eat in their specific chute, they're tracking how much intake they're using, how efficient they are in using it, and then being able to kind of track how that affects like methane gas emission. It's a lot, it's way above what I know, but that's like kind of the quick spill of it. Then you also have like John Deere. I mean, all these tractors, John Deere is the first one that came to mind. All these tractors, it's incredible technology integrated within. I mean, when you think of like Tesla and stuff like that, I would probably like equate it to that to some degree because you have things that can put sprayers out at specific levels that you would need that the chips can just track itself. I mean, these tractors are thousands of dollars. So anything like that you could look into. And then I would say even like with 3D printing and all those kinds of things, definitely being integrated in some to into agriculture to some degree. So those are just a couple of ideas. Through research, there's a lot of technology being intertwined in how they evaluate animals and even plants and seeing, or crops, and seeing how efficient they are, or what they need to do to increase yield through soil health. It's a lot of different technology things that are going on, that if you're interested in that, engineering, anything, you could definitely tap into
Yeah,
agriculture.
and it's like I said, right now, if you can work on a machine, you can find a job doing anything, because there's a lot of money at stake to get these fields harvested, to get these machines on the ground and in the air. So anything that you can fix, engineering, there's always going to be a spot for you. Now, before I get to some of these questions, I do want to talk briefly about your college experience, because we have several here that have dreams of being college athletes. So, how hard was it? How hard was it for you to be a college athlete while still focusing on school in a very tough degree program?
I think it was something, is habits that you have to have. And I think going into school, especially going in, whether you walk on, you're recruited, there's an expectation. There's basically like your job. So I think you have to learn to have some kind of balance and prioritize. So as a student athlete, I had workouts at like 5 and 6 in the morning. So I mean, I wasn't going to be out real late during the weekday often anyway, because I knew I had that weightlifting that I had to do. And for me, because Austin P was Division 1, it was a smaller division, and going in initially, I had some challenges because, recruiting, you definitely want to make sure you ask questions and you have clarity on what the program is going to be like, what kind of support you're going to have as far as coaching. Also, obviously funding and those sorts of things. You got to ask a lot of those questions, but then also you want to be familiar with what the competition is going to be like. So when I went into Austin P, I had to adjust to the competition because I was probably one of the top athletes I was a thrower. So I threw discus, shot, hammer, but in high school, I only threw discus and shot, but I picked up javelin and other events in college. And that's kind of things you'll adjust to as well when you go. But adjusting to the competition and also learning to kind of work with different coaches and seeing how programs operate, there were some challenges there, and I really had to adjust. I mean, I started checking out books on throwing. I had never done any of this, but I wasn't trying to go out there and get embarrassed, so I was doing whatever I needed to do. And then as time progressed, I would work out in the morning with the team and do weights. And then I would have another practice with my coach. And then I would kind of integrate 2 other practices myself. So I would have weight training that I would do. And then sometimes I'd even throw at night. And I'd have like one of my friends, he would come with me because he played football and he was like a little brother to me. And he would just come and support me when I would do that. So in an open field. But at the same time, I was taking like sometimes 18, 21 hours. So I was still having to make sure that I definitely pull some all-nighters. I do have a problem with procrastination. It hasn't left me yet, but I've survived. I don't advise that you keep that trait if you have it, but you just have to prioritize.
You were working for me at the same time with all that going on.
Yeah, you're right. Yep, I was. I definitely was. And I had fun with that. And that was nice to have a job that I actually enjoyed and had fun with everybody. So that made it not feel like work. But I think it's just, for me, I had goals. I wanted to graduate with honors and I wanted to compete well. So, and then also my faith. So those are my 3 top priorities, along with, my loved ones and all that. But I had to make sure I go do what I need to do for that. And there were a lot of long nights and all-nighters. But when you look back, it's one, you survived and it was a blur, and I still had time to make friends and make memories. But working hard and being disciplined, I say if you're disciplined and you work hard and you stay focused on the end goal, then you can do it. It is a balance, and it does take a lot.
Yeah, and I just think it's important for our young people that have dreams of being a student athlete that the demands are extremely high. The rewards are great, but the demands are extremely high. And that'd be for any sport. I know you're track and field, but that would be for any sport on the college level. It really is a commitment that they really do not understand. But I do want to get to some of these questions, and these are all ninth graders. And the first one is Reginald Cooper, and he asks, "How does it feel to work knowing that you've introduced people to new technology in a new field?"
Well, hey, Reginald. I don't know. I think it just really makes me happy, I guess is simply put. When I work, especially when I work with youth at that high school, that was some of the most rewarding moments I had. Just seeing their eyes light up and even just hearing them express their interest in what they, someone was talking about, they wanted to be able to cure cancer through agriculture, one of our last youth members. And he was like, I know the technology's out there and I just really want to be able to utilize it. Maybe I could cure, he's like, maybe I could cure cancer, maybe I could do whatever. So just to see young minds so open to the possibilities and considering things that I haven't even thought of, I learned from them a lot. So it's just really rewarding to see that you're able to introduce something to someone that hopefully can change the trajectory of their life as far as them tapping into an industry they maybe didn't consider.
Yeah, and that's something you don't think about either, because now, with the media trying to move people away from the pharmaceuticals, the natural and herbal healing is going to be even bigger and bigger. So that is a huge part of agriculture that really has not even been scraped the surface yet. So that is a big area to get in. This is Anaya Gamble, and she asked, what would you suggest to someone before entering the agriculture cluster?
Hey Anaya. So I would suggest that you find maybe a mentor in agriculture that maybe you feel you can relate to that share some similar experiences. And I think that will help you. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the specific area of agriculture. I would literally find someone, you could find someone who is in the specific area. Like you maybe want two mentors, one who's in that specific area, and then one who maybe identifies in the same ways you do, to where you can, so if you maybe are a woman in ag, those challenges are going to be different. If you're from an urban area entering ag, those challenges are going to be different than someone maybe with the ag or rural background. So I would find someone in the area you want, hopefully, and I mean literally look up college campuses and maybe talk to a professor. Professors are more open to talk to students than you may realize. Even when you're a college student, don't make time to talk to you. When you cross that stage, and adults don't really want to make time for you anymore. So even call maybe a company, like don't be scared, just come in. Y'all are getting the training now. Just approach someone, even on LinkedIn, Instagram, those sorts of places, Facebook. Connect with them and just ask them if you can pick their brain. I think that would be the first step to do. It could be locally as well as away, and just ask some questions and then see maybe what lands. Join maybe a 4-H program if y'all have that around, an FFA. Look at the extension programs. I know Mississippi State has them in probably every county out there, I'd imagine. And then Alcorn may have some out there too. Connect in the community college, like connect maybe with some schools because they're designed to help mentor you too.
Yeah, and then for anybody watching this later as well, I know Dr. Turner Bailey at Hines Ag personally. I have her, I talk to her all the time, so I could easily get anybody connected with that program if they were interested. That is offered at 2 of their campuses, community college ag program. This is from Eddie Myers, and he asked, would someone need to go to college in order to get into this field?
No, you do not have to go to college. I mean, you can go pick up a trade. They're welding. A lot of that's happening through like FFA programs. So you can certainly get into welding. You can get into a lot of other things, maybe looking into trade schools and career tech programs. You do not have, I mean, and even if you're just interested in farming in general, you certainly can go to a farm and you can get a job there. So you do not necessarily have to have that college degree, but I would say just get the experience. So finding some places, like I said, whether it's through a trade program or it's through an FFA or 4-H program, that'll develop the skills and steer you to the right path, that if college isn't for you. So I would say agriculture is certainly for people that maybe college isn't the route they want to go.
Absolutely. This is Donovan Harris, and he asked, what is your favorite thing about agriculture?
Oh man, that's hard. I I think my favorite thing outside of the animals, because I love the animals, that's highlight when I can go to a farm and see animals. But outside of the animals, I love just the utility of ag. I think ag has opened my mind to be creative in solution development. Ag is so broad, and people don't really realize how broad it is, but ag is huge. So you can do so many things with it, and you can solve so many problems with it. So I think that's my favorite thing about ag. It's really useful.
I mean, it's not only useful, it's necessary. It's necessary
Absolutely.
for survival. This is America Jones, and she asked, what responsibilities do you have to take on when working in agriculture?
Um, say some of the typical responsibilities you would have in another job, like if we're just generally speaking. So you want to stay up on what's going on in industry within your field. And I would say the biggest thing in ag that I think would make you like a big asset is understanding the other side. And that's probably in any industry, but you need to understand the different talking points within your industry. So agriculture has some different polarizing views. Everybody's doing ag, but the way they do it is different, or how they think ag is affecting our environment is different. So I would say to be successful in ag, my opinion, to be successful in broad thinking in ag, you need to be able to understand both sides. Now, it doesn't mean you have to agree, because you're going to have to pick maybe a lane to some degree on what you're advocating for, but you certainly need to understand trends and different things that are happening, as well as how different people are doing them, so you can create the best solution.
Oh yeah, I mean, and I think that would be that would be the case for any cluster, for any field. Just getting as much information as possible, and then like that's funny that you said agriculture solves a problem. I say that just about any business, is that at the end of the day, you really are solving a problem to make it easier for society. Now, just we're almost out of time, but I do want to ask you one last thing before we go. And we thank you so much for joining us. But just like everybody else in this room, with the exception of me, you grew up right up the road in Memphis. Well, these are all young Black kids in the South. At one time, you were their age. They're all 14, 15, 16. And even if they don't want to go into ag, you've shown that a young Black girl in the South can do some amazing things. And you faced a lot of obstacles, and they're going to face those same obstacles. It's not a matter of if; it's a matter of when. So, knowing that they're going to face the same obstacles you face as a young Black person in the United States, what can they do now to be as successful as you've become?
Um, I think what I would recommend is you have to be grounded in some kind of faith of something. Everybody's different. But I think for me, whenever faced with adversity, me having faith was my ability to stay focused and to understand. I saw a really good quote from Kobe Bryant, and he was talking about how you need to understand that storms are temporary. Every storm he's been through has been temporary, and he was able to make it through it and move on. And just being able to have that perspective that every storm is temporary. So when you face adversity, if we're speaking specifically on race, you have to understand to have the confidence in yourself and the confidence in your faith, and understand that if someone says no, well, that just wasn't for me, and something else is for me, and there's a reason for that no, and look at it as a blessing that now you're getting primed for the right opportunity. So I would say have some kind of foundation to where when you do face adversity, you can continue to move forward, and have a tribe of people. And whether that's one person or 15, have people that are going to support you. I know during my doctoral journey, a lot of people don't understand what that even means and what all goes into it. And it's not for them to understand. It's not the most, exciting conversation if you're talking about all the day in and day out things. But I have people who will say, good job on that test. I know you can do it. Or they're calling me doctor and I'm not even finished yet. So those kind of people, even people who don't understand everything, just someone who will root for you, whether it's one phone call or multiple, have those people around you. So have faith, focus, this discipline to keep going and not let a no derail you. And then find a problem and find fulfill your purpose. Don't chase the money. I know it's tempting. Find your purpose, find what you're fit to do, and follow that. If you're following what you're supposed to do, that you were only designed to be built on this earth to do, if you're doing that, you're going to make it. And people are going to try to derail you, but you're going to make it. Stay focused on that, and it'll all work out.
That's awesome. Now, before we go, tell us AGSPOSURE.org, and where are you guys on Instagram and Facebook for AGSPOSURE?
Yes, if you just type in AGSPOSURE, and it's just like exposure, but it's AG at the beginning. So AGSPOSURE, AGSPOSURE. So anywhere you type that, we should pop up.
I put it in the chat now. Make sure I'm spelling it right.
Yep, you are. And if y'all ever have any questions, please feel free to reach out. You can reach out through Instagram or whatever. Feel free to connect. I'd be happy to share more and send you links, anything I can do.
Well, yeah, and that's amazing. I'm so proud of you. You're doing some amazing stuff out there. It's just such a blessing to see you.
You
And
too.
I
You're
guess,
doing amazing things too. Thank you for inviting me and thank you for doing this. Y'all students, y'all don't know. This is a blessing. I wish I had this. I'd probably be somewhere else. I don't know, but you doing this is amazing. I love watching and seeing the people you have on. It's awesome.
well, that's the one good thing about COVID. It got me really good at doing this because we've been able to have them all over the country and been able to reconnect. And they don't know who this is, but we're going to have Janelle Avery in a few weeks from Dayton, Ohio, your former
Yay! I love
classmate. So we're going to
Janelle.
have
Tell her
her.
I said hey.
We're gonna have her. She's married in Dayton, Ohio now. So y'all are all over the country, but we're all coming together. So
Yes,
that's awesome. And and I will, like I said, I'll be sending this to Dr. Carla Turner Bailey at Hines, and y'all
please,
gotta get
yes.
her. She is leading the charge on Black Ag here in Mississippi.
I would love to. Thank you so much for having me. I love this.
Hey, you're awesome. I'll talk to you soon, my friend.
All right, talk to you later. Bye.